Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to discuss very important articles that appear in our today's newspaper. First of all, we are going to see important topics of the day, and later on we are going to see each and every topic from prelims and as well as mains point of view. And I'll let you know how questions can be asked in prelims and as well as mains. Okay, so let us see the topics of the day. First topic is government introduces paper leak bill in Lok Sabha. Debate likely today. This article is talking about anti-paper leak bill. And actually this bill is going to amend one important act which came up by Government of India in 2024. In 2024 mains there was a question on that act, and now again our government is trying to amend that act. So possibly in 2026 mains or 2027 mains or 2027 prelims you may get a question on this bill. This topic is important from polity point of view from GS paper 2. And next topic it is about BJP to mark Guru Ravidas 650th birth anniversary. In history, if you are getting any this kind of anniversaries like 100 years anniversary, 150th, 125th, 175th, 200, that will be very important from UPSC point of view. You may expect question on this Guru Ravidas in 2027 prelims because this year marks 650th anniversary. This topic is important from history point of view. And next topic is how a political term can majorly fix urban India's water woes. As you all know that urban areas in our country are facing problem of water crisis. And what is the role of urban local body in that in that solving of that problem? So here this article is talking about what is the role of a mayor and how this tenure of this mayor is affecting this water security in urban areas. And this topic is important from your GS paper 2 under polity. So as you all completed polity right recently, in municipalities topic you have to add this update of tenure of mayor. You have to see which article talks about this tenure of mayor, what is the problem related to this tenure of this mayor, and water crisis in urban areas. You have to know about that case. And next topic is forced labor fairs. In yesterday's class, we discussed about US came up with permanent tariff, and US said that India will come under bracket of 10%. So this article is extension of yesterday's article. What India should do, whether India should go with an agreement with US or India should stand firm. So this is about that article. And this topic is important from international relations and as well as economy point of view. And next article is AI's next test, reaching India's informal women worker. As you all know that there is very low participation of women in labor force, and because of this AI, how can we gain or how can we lose? That is the thing which gave in this article. And this topic is also important from science and technology and as well as economy. And next topic is beyond compliance, India's road to cleaner mobility. As you all know that India has lots of climate targets. So when we want to achieve that targets, obviously we have to do some changes in our mobility sector. So government of India is trying to move towards cleaner or a greener mobility. But on one side, government wants to also follow CAFE3 norms. Here we have to see what are those CAFE3 norms, how it is going to affect our cleaner mobility targets of government of India, and what is a way forward. So this topic is important from GS paper 3 under environment and ecology. So most of the articles today are like little bit confusing, little bit tough. So focus guys, focus is very important to understand all these articles today. Okay, now let us see this article, read out the title. Government introduces paper leak bill in Lok Sabha, debate likely today. So we are going to have debate related to this bill in our parliament. So first what you have to know is what is this bill and what is the earlier act. Why our government want to introduce this amendment to this act. What are the aims and objectives? What will be the impact or what are the features? If UPSC wants to ask a question on this, first of all I'll show you the question so that you can understand which areas you have to focus. Can you see here mains question? It is asked in 2023 mains, sorry 2024 mains. What are the aims and objectives of recently passed and enforced the Public Examination Prevention of Unfair Means Act 2024? Whether university or state education board examinations too are covered under this act. So in 2024, government came up with this act. What is this act? Public Examination Prevention of Unfair Means Act 2024 to prevent the paper leaks. Okay, at that time, UPSC asked a mains question. What it asked? Aims and objectives is one keyword, and this one is whether the state or university exams also covered in this or not. So now we came up with a bill now to amend this act. That means already UPSC asked a mains question whenever Government of India came up with this, because it is a very important, right? You know about youth population, many of them are writing different examinations for different courses entrance and even for jobs. So if this kind of paper leaks happens, obviously it will be affecting lots of people in our country. So to prevent this, they came up with act. And now again, NEET paper leak, student protest, you know, even education minister resigned, and we got new education minister now, and now the government of India wants to tighten this kind of things related to question papers. So they introduced a new bill now. Because of this, obviously UPSC can ask you a question 100% in your prelims or mains. So if in case, if it is asking question in prelims, how it can ask? Consider the following statements regarding the new bill, Anti-Paper Leak Bill 2026, and under that it can give you 2 to 3 statements, and it may ask you to identify correct or incorrect. That is the first possible question. And in mains, what it will ask? What are the features of the bill? What are the aims of the bill? What are the challenges? Or it may ask you to suggest some measures. Like that, UPSC can frame a mains based question related to that topic. Okay, so this is the earlier mains based question 2024. In 2026 mains or 2027 mains, you can expect that question. Okay, now let us see in detail about that bill. Okay, please make a note of that bill name. Public Examinations Prevention of Unfairs Amendment Bill. Okay, just you have to add amendment. Amendment is nothing but the change. Already whatever the act we came up, we are making certain changes in that act. But we are not completely replacing the earlier act. Only whatever the provisions of earlier act is there, you are just making some changes. Okay, and this bill is going to amend Public Examinations Prevention of Unfair Means Act of 2024. Why? Because we have to come up with a stronger legal framework to prevent paper leaks and organized cheating and any other unfair means adopted by public examinations. It may be like state examinations, it may be university examinations, it may be your final year like in graduation examination or PG examinations, or it may be any entrance test for any other courses, or it may be competitive examinations. In whatever the examinations may be, if there is any paper leak or if there is any impersonation or if there is any cheating or if they are using any unfair methods, now we are going to have a stronger legal framework in our country to punish those people. So for that stronger legal framework, now we came up with this amendment bill to already existing act. Clear? And what are the aims here? Aims and objectives. The first one is we want to prevent question paper leak. There should not be any question paper leak at any cost. And even there should not be any examination malpractices. And you know, sometimes we have organized cheating. In many movies, they'll show that there will be one satellite based, dish based car will be placed outside the examination hall, and they'll be using smart watches. There will be one movie scene also, no? Arjun movie scene, you can recall it. And even Robo movie also, Aishwarya will be using earpods and she will be writing. So if there is any kind of that organized cheating, then they will be punished strictly. And next one is we want to ensure fair and merit based recruitment only. Next one is we want to protect the interest of honest candidates. We have to improve accountability and transparency in public examinations. So these are the aims and objectives why we came up with this introduction of new bill, and the name here is Anti-Paper Leak Bill. Okay, and we want to even enhance this digital security also. And next one is to enable speedy justice through fast track courts. And obviously what happen if you are increasing this kind of legal framework, obviously we can enhance trust between the students, parents and government. Okay, now let us see what are the key features of this bill, what it is saying. First one is we want to establish fast track courts. Why? To ensure speedy justice delivery system. We need to enhance fast track courts. And this one is we have now stricter punishments. We have imprisonment and there is hefty fines for the people who violated this act. And next one here is we are going to take an action against organized syndicates. So there will be some criminal networks which will be dealing with this kind of paper leak. So here regarding that syndicate, so there will be stricter investigation and as well as there will be even prosecution also. And next one is protection of merit. Only the deserved candidates will be eligible now if we are tightening the norms. And next one is we can prevent organized crime and we can also restore the public trust. So these are the some important features. You may get question on aims and objectives and features of the bill, okay, in your mains. And now let us see the next article, read out the title. BJP to mark Guru Ravidas 650th birth anniversary. This article is talking about 650th birth anniversary of Ravidas and keep star mark. Guru Ravidas. You may get question, you can expect question 2027 prelims about this Guru Ravidas. Why it is important? Because in your art and culture, you have this topic of Bhakti and Sufi movement. And many a times UPSC asked repeatedly questions on Bhakti and Sufi movement. And you study about this Kabir, Ravidas, Tukaram, Mirabai. Have you heard these names? All these saints, all these poets you will be studying in that chapter. And repeatedly UPSC will ask question on that. And this Ravidas also a Bhakti saint. You will be studying under this Bhakti and Sufi movement. You need to know about this person from history point of view. Clear? How you can get a question? Consider the following statements regarding Guru Ravidas. Under that, UPSC can give you statements. Statement based question is possible. And second type of question is pair based question. We have Ravidas, Tukaram, Mirabai, Kabir. They'll take some names and they will ask you to match the following, or they'll give you in a pair based format. If they are giving in the pair based format, they may ask you like identify how many of above pairs are correct or incorrect. Then that way UPSC can frame you a question. So these three types of questions are possible from this. Okay, in mains also many a times they asked question on Bhakti and Sufi movement. So whenever you are writing any answer related to Bhakti and Sufi movement, you have to focus on value addition. So which kind of value addition you can do here? You can draw India map and you can show the location of the saints from which state. Okay, because some they came from North India, some they came from East India, some they came from South India. So you have to know their names and the location, where are they from. That will be a value addition point you can add in your Bhakti and Sufi movements related mains answer. And one more thing here is whenever you are writing answer related to Bhakti and Sufi movement, you have to try to remember the timeline of these saints particularly. Actually, Bhakti movement started in South earlier compared to that of North. From South, it moved slowly to North. So you have to know at which time, how it had been spread. You have to see the map and you have to see the timeline. So whenever you are using map in history, it will be easy to remember the things and understand the concept, or else you will forget easily. Do as much as map work in your history. Okay. Now let us see some facts. First important point you have to remember is origin and birth. He was born in Varanasi in 15th century. And remember one thing, he belongs to marginalized community. If you remember this point, you can remember about what he did. Marginalized society means nothing but from scheduled caste, right? So at that time, during this 15th century, how was our society? Very rigid society. and there was discrimination against scheduled caste and marginalized people. That means what was his ideology based on? Against caste based discrimination, against caste system. Yes, that is his ideology. That's it. Okay, if you remember where he belongs to which community he belongs to, then you can just frame an idea, because not every book will give each and every point related to every poet. By using your common sense, you have to analyze the things. You are writing polity test every day, right? There also, is every point covered in your class? There will be application based things. So how will you get that application? If you know that, if you do multiple questions, then only you can understand, like, okay, in this way also UPSC question can be asked. Like that you will be getting some idea. Okay, so you have to apply your common sense. Then only you can solve your prelims questions. Not even any book will give each and every point in your whatever the statements given in your examination. You have to apply your knowledge. Okay, try to learn the application part. So just remember this marginalized section, and now you can understand what is this ideology. And I'll give you a question how they will be asking in your examination at last. Okay, there we can see how the application will work, how your common sense will work. Okay, next one here is, one more point you have to remember is, he was disciple of poet Ramananda. Okay, and one more important fact you have to remember related to history is, they will be asking the contemporary person. Contemporary means nothing but during this person life, who were the other person who were living in other areas. That is called as contemporary. So many a times UPSC asked a question of contemporary of Harshavardhan. Have you heard this Harshavardhan name? In ancient history you will come across. Who was the contemporary of this Harshavardhan? Who was the contemporary of Buddha? Who was contemporary of Mahavira? Buddha, Mahavira, you know, Buddhism, Jainism. So like that UPSC can ask you a question on contemporary. And here if you see, contemporary of Ramananda is Kabir. Okay, and he also believed to be a spiritual guru of Mirabai. Like that, UPSC will give you statements based on who is contemporary, his disciple of who is his disciple. Like that, it can ask you some confusing statements in your examination. And this one is, his philosophy is Nirguna Bhakti. In Bhakti movement, we will come across two types of Bhakti. One is Saguna Bhakti, next one is Nirguna Bhakti. That is nothing but ideal form, who believe in ideals and who will not believe in idols. Nirguna Bhakti means they will not go for idol worship. Normally, whatever the worship we do is idol worship now, right? If you go to mandir, we will be having an idol. Yes, that is called as idol worship. But these people philosophy will be Nirguna Bhakti. That is formless God. God has no form. All these forms are created by humans. That is the ideology of Nirguna Bhakti. But Saguna Bhakti is nothing but they will do offer worship to idols as we do now. And this one is, he conceptualized Begumpura. Begumpura is nothing but a city of sorrow. As you all know that this person belongs to marginalized section of society, there was a huge discrimination based on caste at that time. So because of this, he want to come up with a city without sorrow. In that city, they need to be egalitarian society. Egalitarian means nothing but equal powers to all. And this one is, there should be no suffering, there should be no fear of discrimination. That is the ideology of that person, and that city name is Begumpura. And next one here is, he came up with one more concept called as state of Sahaj. Sahaj is nothing but it is a mystic union or mystical union of truth of many and one. One is God, many is people. Okay, everyone's spirit will be a union, that is called as the state of Sahaj. And next one here is, he wrote lots of poems in different languages. And you have to remember one thing, that is his devotional songs are incorporated in Adi Granth. Adi Granth is also called as Guru Granth Sahib. What is Adi Granth? What is the holy book of Hindus? Holy book of Islam? Holy book of Christians? Holy book of Sikhs? This one. Okay. So here, that way try to remember the things, guys. Okay, so devotional songs are incorporated in this Adi Granth. It is a holy scripture of Sikhism. Okay, next one here is his works also preserved in Panchwani. Panchwani. You have to remember this. It is called as Dadu Panthi tradition. Mm, to make you understand what is this Dadu Panthi here is, do you know this Kabir's? Do you know Kabir? I think Kabir Panth. You might have heard about this in your 10th class or Hindi language. You have this Kabir Panth. It is nothing but it is about whatever the poems or hymns written by this Kabir. In the same way, there is one person called as Dadu, and whatever the writings of this is called as Dadu Panthi tradition. In that tradition, his works also had been included. Okay. And next one here is his teachings led to the foundation of Ravidasya religion also. So these are the contributions of this person, and this person will focus on only egalitarian society. There should not be any sorrow. There should not be any caste-based discrimination. That is about his ideology. And his teachings were based on that only. Equality, equality, equality. That's it. And now let us see next article. See this, guys. How a political term can majorly fix urban India's wastewater woes. Actually, it is somewhat critical and complicated article, and I'll try to tell you in a simple way. Okay, as you all know that what is the problem majorly seen in urban areas? Water scarcity or water insecurity. Can you tell me some examples of urban areas where we have this problem of water insecurity? Hyderabad. Recently in Delhi, we discussed one case study. Mixture of groundwater with sewage water, black water in posh area. And even recently in MP also, because of leakage of Narmada river pipeline, sewage water mixed with what? Drinking water, and that led to contamination of water. Hundreds of people got admitted in hospital. Everything we know. Mostly we have water scarcity. Why there is water scarcity? What do you think? What is the reason? Excessive groundwater exploitation. We are drawing more and more water. Next. Okay, rainwater harvesting is not there properly in urban areas. And even we have concrete areas. Wherever you go, we have cement roads, downward roads. There is no proper percolation of water we are getting as form of rainfall into the ground. Because of this, there is no recharge of aquifers. Next, are we going for proper treatment of wastewater? Wastewater treatment is also not happening. Okay, now if you are taking about this urban areas comes under urban local bodies. Who will maintain this urban areas? Urban local bodies. Which articles talks about municipalities in India? 243 alphabets. I said already. Come on, alphabets. Z, A2. Very good. Girls. 243 ZG. Okay, talks about municipalities. Okay. Which article talks about tenure of mayor? Do you know mayor? Who is mayor? Who is mayor? Where we can say this mayor? Who is mayor? Have you heard this word at least mayor? Head of municipality in urban area is called as mayor. And which article talks about the tenure? Which article? Any idea? We have to give test on these articles now. Okay, next test I will plan only on articles, then you will remember. Any idea? Okay, tell me normally what is the tenure of a mayor? Yes, there is one article in our constitution which tells about the tenure of mayor is left to the discretion of that state. That means can we see uniform tenure of mayor in India? If you go to Telangana, if you go to AP, if you go to Northeast, if you go to Delhi, if you go to some area, do we have the same period of tenure of mayor? That means no. Based on the state, it is changed. Okay, normally it will be from 5 years, some areas 1 year, some areas 2.5 years. Okay, in some states it is 5 years, in Delhi it is just 1 year, in Bangalore it is 2.5 years. Okay, so if tenure is less, can we ensure proper water management in urban areas? That is this article. This article is saying that tenure of mayor is not properly there because it left to discretion of the state government. In some states it is 5 years, in some states it is 2.5, in some areas it is 1 year. Because of that, there is no proper efficient planning of urban water management. Because of this, many urban areas are facing this problem. So this article is saying that if you are maintaining the fixed tenure of this mayor for 5 years, our mayor will be getting proper time period so that he can plan properly for this management of water. Like he can take some steps for percolation of water, recharging of aquifers, wastewater management, solid waste management. All these steps can be taken by a mayor if he is having the proper tenure. If he is having 1 year, if he is approving any plan, can we give assurance that the next mayor will continue that? For sure, no. Policy paralysis can happen. That is this article. Clear? Have you understood the idea of this article? So what you have to see, whenever you are writing any answer related to urban water crisis, can you add this problem? What are the major reasons? If question is asking about what are the major reasons, can you ask about this, can you add about this provision? Article so and so of Indian Constitution talks about the tenure of mayor which left to the discretion of state government. Because of that, there is no proper efficiency of urban local governance related to water security. Can you add this? So in that way, you have to write answers. And even from a local self-government like municipalities and panchayats also, many a times UPSC asked mains-based question. In that, they can ask you about urban water crisis and interlinking with municipality. Is there a chance of getting mains-based question? Absolutely yes. There you can add this point. Clear? Now let us see this in detail. This article is saying that the core idea is a stable 5-year political term for mayors and municipal chairmen is important. And these changes we are calling it as second generation of constitutional reforms. Please make a note. Second generation of constitutional reforms in urban local government. You have to use this kind of keywords in your answer. Unless and until if you are not using them, you cannot score more in your mains. Okay, so here this article is saying that we need stable 5-year political term for mayor, and author is calling this as second generation of constitutional reforms. And here we want to empower our local self-government, in bracket urban, through this changing of tenure under 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay, now let us see why short mayor term can worsen this urban water crisis. First one, please make a note. Article 243R 2 subclass B of Indian Constitution leaves the tenure of mayors to the discretion of state government. Because of this, we have variations in the tenure of mayors. In some states, it is 5 years. In some states, it is 1 year. 1 year in Delhi and 2.5 years in Mumbai and as well as Bangalore. So because of this short tenure, they are not going for multi-year water infrastructure projects. If you want to build any project, of course it will take some years. If tenure is 1 year, can they complete that project? For sure, no. And which one is they cannot coordinate with multiple agencies related to water supply, sewage, rainwater harvesting and flood management. So because of this, there is no proper accountability of mayors related to water security in urban areas. So these are the problems which are highlighted in this article. And now let us see how a fixed 5-year political term can help to fix this problem of water. First one is now mayors will get time and stability so that they can lead long-term transformation in water management in urban areas. First one is they'll get time. Based on that time, they can design some policies. And this one is, it will enable executive authority over municipal functions rather than just doing their functions. Now they will be having authority for taking some steps in water supply, maintaining drainage, and even in cities also we have lakes. We can go for rejuvenation of lakes and we can go for wastewater management properly. Now it will be the executive authority now. And next one here is there will be stronger democratic accountability also. Okay, so in this way we can improve water issue or water related insecurity we can overcome by this increasing of tenure of mayor. That is the thing which mainly said in this article. And see this article, read out the title guys. Forced labor fairs. India should not let US new tariff push it towards a trade deal. Read this title guys. What can you understand here? You know about forced labor. Yesterday we discussed about the story of 10% of tariffs on India. Okay, now read this second line. India should not let US new tariff push it towards a trade deal. What does it mean? Now US clearly defined that India will come under bracket of 10% of additional tariffs. If India is attracting 10% of tariff, what happened? Indian goods will become 10% costly in US. Because of that, what happened? If Indian goods are becoming costly, what about the demand for Indian goods in US? Obviously reduced. If reduced, will we export more? No. Will we produce more? What will be the impact on our economy? Negative impact will be there on economy. Okay, so what we'll do? We will talk with US and we'll try to negotiate with US to have a deal that don't place this much of tariff on Indian goods, try to reduce it. Okay, that is called as a trade deal. We may also go for a free trade agreement with US. Yes. So now India is approaching US, means can US take it as an opportunity or not? If someone is coming to us, obviously we'll try to take that opportunity to benefit us more because it is their need. For example, there is a money lender and there is a farmer who is going to this money lender to borrow money, and this guy is going to this person to borrow money. At that time, this person, what he'll say? He will impose more amount of interest rate. Yes or no? If you pay 5 rupees 5% interest, then only I'll give money. Yes or no? He will be using that as an opportunity or not? Same thing apply here also. If India is trying to talk a trade deal with US because of this 10% of tariff on India, can US use it as an opportunity or not? Will it be an opportunity cost for India or not? For sure, yes. What can you add here? Come on, think. You know already all those points. Online students, tell me in the comment box. Recently, what are the talks talked between India and US? Kiran? Nitin? Akshay, you know this. Come on, tell me. Yes, very good. So actually, earlier we had talks between US and India. And at that time, the trade talks had been cancelled because India didn't accepted some proposals of US. What are that proposals? US said that we will include genetically modified crops. Next one is they also said that we will include dairy sector products. Already India is famous for agriculture and allied activities. India is the second largest producer of milk in the world. So if we are including these products also in the deal between India and US, what US will do? US will dump these dairy products in our Indian market. Already in India, farmers are producing that. If you are getting that kind of products again in India, obviously what happen? It will be impacting Indian farmers. And next, US also said that we will also export genetically modified crops related products into India. And actually, you know that we don't know what exactly the impact of this genetically modified crops on human health. If you're including that in this kind of deals, what happened? Obviously, India will be having negative impact. So, India said, no, we don't want to include this dairy sector products and GM crops in this trade deal. Now, if US imposes this kind of new tariffs on India, that is 10%, if India is going and asking to have a deal, means obviously again US can include these two things in their deal, and it can now export these products to India. So because of this, what happened? Overall, it will be having a huge negative impact on India. So this is the story that you have to remember. And what are the points that we had discussed in our earlier classes? You have to include that and you have to frame an answer. Are you understanding here? Are you understood? Have you understood what is the meaning here? Now read once again. Now you will understand what exactly I said. India should not let US new tariffs push towards a trade deal. So if you know this, then only you can understand this present article, or else you will not. Because of this, I said this. And now, is that clear what exactly the meaning of this statement is? Now, let us see in detail. I will show you the timeline also, what things happened, when happened, everything. In 2026 March, US Trade Representative launched a section called Section 301, and they started investigations on 60 economies. So, what kind of investigations they started? Which country is using forced labor to produce products? And after producing of that products, where they are sending, to which countries they are exporting. That kind of investigations they started in March 2026. Okay, why they started this? US is saying that we want to ban forced labor across the world. So if you are not importing that kind of goods, obviously we can try to take some steps to decrease this forced labor. That is the idea why we started this investigation. That is explanation of US. And later on in June 2026, USTR proposed additional tariffs on countries which is using forced labor and kept India under bracket of 12.5% and other countries 10%, 20% like that. And recently US said that, okay, recently India did a change in our foreign trade policy, and what we did, we also came up with the same lines. We will not import goods from other countries which they are using this forced labor. That kind of change we made in the month of July 2026. This is the thing that we discussed in yesterday's class. Because of this step, now US said that yes, for this move we will give some concession. Now India will be coming under this bracket of 10% tariff. So this is the story. First they start investigation and they list out at the countries which are using this forced labor and exporting the goods. And they said that we will not import the goods if they are making these goods by using forced labor. And later on, they divided the countries based on them. They said that we are imposing 12.5, 10.5, 5%, 25%, like that. They categorized countries. And India at that time said that India will come under 12.5% bracket. So to prevent this, India came up with one change in our foreign trade policy. And India also said that we will not import the goods which are made from this forced labor. So because of that step taken by our country, recently US announced that India will come under bracket of 10%. So this is the story which happened between India and US since March 2026 onwards. And now let us see what exactly this article is saying. Article is saying that US came up with forced labor tariffs, and they are using this forced labor tariffs for political purpose and as a commercial tool. But there is no moral or labor standards behind this. They are just using for their own political gain and commercial tool. And next one here is India should not allow this threat of these tariffs to force to sign any agreement with US. So because of this additional 10% tariff, India should not get afraid of it, or India should not fear of this. We should not go for any agreement. Why? Because already we took a concrete step. What we took? We banned labor imports, forced labor imports into our country. So because of this, if you are going forward a step to have an agreement with US, that will be taken as an opportunity by US. India will comes under influence of US, so that we will lose our sovereignty. What is the word meaning sovereignty? India should be independent in taking any decisions. If we come under the influence of US, can we maintain sovereignty? Can we take decisions independently? For sure, no. On another side, Iran-US war is also going on. So because of this, undue influence of US can be seen in India. So because of this, we should not go for signing off trade deal with this US. That is this argument of this article. Why? Because it may have one-sided deal. Because of that deal, it will affect agriculture sector, dairy sector and automobile sector. So that will be damaging our Indian farmers' economy and even domestic industries of our country. And it can be have opportunity cost on India. Rather than going for deal, what we have to do? We have to go for diversifying of our markets. If not US, we have many other countries. If not one friend, we have many friends. Yes? So we can go for diversifying of our markets. Next one is we have to strengthen our domestic manufacturing. We have to produce more and we have to export more to compensate that. And we have to improve our labor enforcement system. And you should not come under any external country influence. That is this article. Clear? It is somewhat complicated, but if you are habituated to read current affairs, it will be easy, not that much complicated. Okay, now let us see next article, guys. See this. AI's next test. Reaching India's informal women worker. What does it mean? Okay, if you cannot understand that main title, so in this editorials you'll be having statements here. Just one statement. You can read this. Read this, guys. Can you see this? AI must empower informal women workers for truly inclusive economic growth. What does it mean? AI must empower informal women workers for truly inclusive economic growth. What does it mean? Just what is the idea? Come on, think and tell. AI may provide job skills for informal women. Okay, I'll tell you. Economy is going on, right? In the chapter of poverty and employment, you will come across this keyword informal and formal jobs. Okay, informal and formal. What is this informal and formal? Have you heard this? Informal. Next one is formal. It is also called as unorganized. Here we call it as organized. Organized or formal work means they will have 9 to 5 job, which is recognized by the central government or state government, and they will be having social security benefits. What are the social security benefits? On festivals, they will be having paid leave on Dasra, Diwali, like that. And next one is they will be getting maternity benefits for women, and they will get health insurance. And even after once they retire, they'll get PF pension, monthly pension, and once they retire, they'll get lump sum amount of money. So all this will comes under social security benefits. But informal or unorganized people will not get this social security benefits. For example, you can take agricultural laborers, you can take construction workers, okay, you can take domestic workers. So if they go to the work, then only they'll get salary. If they sit in their home because of some reasons, will they get the money? For sure, no. Will they get any paid holidays? They will not get. Will they get any insurance? For sure, no. Will they get any maternity benefits like 6 months of leave? Maternal leave? No. So actually the problem in our country is 90% of our labor works under this informal sector. Only 10% of employment in our country is formal. And in this informal also, in this 90% also, mostly 75% of people will be women, not men. Men less compared to that of women. And in yesterday's or day before yesterday's article, we discussed about women participation labor forces very less. How much percent? Less than 30% of female labor force participation. Did we discussed or not? You have to connect this again. So which kind of work will be done by women in informal sector? Agriculture laborers, if you see in urban areas, in rural areas, in urban areas, household work, Next one is construction sites, we can see women. And even domestic work. In our homes, the maid will come, no? That is domestic work. Next. And even whatever the work woman is doing in her home, like care to their kids, care to the elderly, is that paid? Is your mother is asking like 50 rupees for your Maggie? Even I won't ask for my kids. So here we are not paying anything for the mother. What are the service did by our mother? If you go to hospital and if you are admitted in the hospital, they will ask nurse charge or doctor's charge. But after coming to home for 2 to 3 days, your mother will be serving you. Will you pay anything? No charge. It is of free of cost, right? So here, what are the work which done by women under care is also unpaid. So now what is happening now? Advancements are happening, technology is coming. To clean the dishes, we have dishwashers. Of course, it is costly now in India, but in future, it will be less cost. We have washing machines, accepted. Different range, different variety of washing machines based on the cost. To sweep and to mop the floor, we have robots, accepted. Yes. To make the things ready, to heat anything, we have ovens, we have air fryers to do easily. Earlier we used to have like a maid to cook the food in the home, but now we have air fryers, we have ready-made packaged foods outside, we are just mixing, and even we have premix, no? Cake premix is available, sambar premix is available, chicken curries, biryani premix, everything is ready-made now in the markets. Just we'll add water, we'll keep in the fryers or cookers, then your work is done. Is there any need of having them made now? And even we have lots of apps, Zomato, Swiggy, Zepto, you will use more than me, I know. You know, within minutes, even within 10 minutes, the delivery is happening. So because of this, what is the future of these people who are working in this informal sector, especially women? Will they get proper livelihood in future? Like next 5 years or 10 years? Everyone in their home, they will have their dishwasher, they will have their robots, they will have their washing machines, they will have their instant foods. Everything will be there in their hands. Then what about these people? If they are not getting proper livelihood, will they continue? Will they ensure their Article 21, right to life and personal liberty? Then what about their future? This article is saying that we can use AI and we can help this women who are doing this informal jobs. So now tell me, how can we use AI for protection of this people livelihood? Are you understanding what I'm saying? Come on, tell me guys, what can be done? We can use AI and we can try to develop the skills of this people right now onwards, not in future. Right now itself, we have to use this AI and we have to help this woman to upgrade their skills. And they have to get some kind of opportunities. Then only we can ensure our economy in future, and as well as we can achieve our target of Viksit Bharat 2047. This is the idea of this article, guys. Is that clear? Any doubts? Okay, now let us see what this article is suggesting, what can be done. So here this article gave some data, please make a note of this data. India has around 490 million informal workers. I said about youth population data, I said about older population data, and now one more data, informal workers population data. India has around approximately 490 million informal workers. India has around 490 million informal workers and they form the backbone of our economy. If these people livelihood is affected, obviously what happened, entire India's economy will be affected. Okay, and next one here is, yeah, women make the large share of this informal workers. They will do home-based works, domestic work, street vendors, agriculture laborers, and even some are self-employed in the low productivity activities. Okay, so actually, whatever the work done by this woman in unpaid, in family work is mostly unpaid, and even if they are doing some self-employment, they will be getting low-paid salaries. And next, one important data which is highlighted in this article is women are already working longer hours than compared to that of male. Especially if you take the age group of 25 to 39 years of age group, women are working 70 hours per a week. That means minimum 10 hours they are working per a day. But male, they are working 54 to 60 hours per a week. Per a week, men is working 54 to 60 hours, but woman is working 70 hours in this informal sector. That means who is working more? Woman is working more. Who will get more leisure time? Men will get more leisure time. If we want to upgrade the skills of women, already they are having very less leisure time. Now, what can we do? They are getting 10 hours of less time compared to that of men. So, men can use this 10 hours per a week and they can upgrade their skills easily. But women, they are getting very leisure time. This is also one problem which highlighted in this article. So, roughly women are getting 10 hours less per a week for self-development, for learning, for taking rest, everything. So, here what we have to do is we have to use AI and we have to try to redesign the tools related to skilling programs about around women's actual time. Like whatever the time women are getting, whenever they are getting free time, so at that time we have to design our AI tools and we have to try to provide certain skills related to literacy, related to language constraints. We have to take all those into consideration. We have to design AI tools. And next one here is we have to ensure more budget for gender who are related to this informal women. And this one is we have to expand flexible lifelong learning opportunities through AI India mission. Government came up with this AI India mission. By using that, we have to enhance the skill of people by using this AI. And next one is we have to make unpaid and informal women work more visible so that we can reward it. So because of this reason, recently our Prime Minister said to give 30,000 rupees per month for women. Okay, so this is this thing, guys. And now you have to think in an innovative way. You already completed your graduation, right? So with your knowledge, you have to think like how we can skill our parents first, especially mother. What can be done to empower our mother? So if you start from your dear ones, obviously you can think about this nation in a clear way. You will be having a clear vision. Because after becoming an IAS officer, you have to lead some projects related to women empowerment because it is also one sustainable development goal. So if you want to take that kind of projects, obviously you need to have a clear vision like what can be done for women. Okay, so think innovative way and try to make some points like what can be done for women empowerment. If you do that work now, that will be useful for writing of your answers and also essay. Every year, remember this one thing, guys. Without a question on empowerment of women, there is no UPSC paper till today. So do that work and try to write some ideas what can be done for empowerment of women from your side based on your understanding of society, based on your knowledge, graduation level things, everything, and try to write at least 4 points. That will be useful in your essay and as well as in your answer. And even girls, remember this thing, in your interview, they will be asking you a question regarding women empowerment, challenges of women. One question will be there because in every interview panel, there will be one woman. And if you are a woman, they will be asking about what can you do for women empowerment. To answer such kind of questions, this kind of work is for sure needed. Okay, do this work today itself. See this next article, guys. Beyond compliance, India's road to cleaner mobility. Again, this is one more complicated article, so I want to make it very clear. Okay, what is meaning of cleaner mobility? Cleaner mobility means we have to reduce emissions into atmosphere. That is an example of cleaner mobility. How can we reduce emissions? What can be done? E20, E20 petrol, ethanol blended petrol. Yes. Next one is we can move towards electric vehicles. Yes, accepted. Next. Recently we launched one train. What is that? Hydrogen powered train. Yes. Next. So these are the examples of reducing of carbon dioxide emissions into atmosphere. So this article is saying that there is a debate in India Why? Because our government of India proposed KF3 norms. Please make a note KF3. On this, UPSC asked questions in your prelims. CAFE, CAFE. CAFE means full form is Corporate Average Fuel Efficiency. Corporate Average Fuel Efficiency, KF3 norms. Okay, KF3 norms. So, government proposed KF3 norms on one side. And we have our climate ambitions. What are the climate ambitions of India? To reduce carbon dioxide emissions, to increase forest cover, and this one is to achieve this net zero or carbon neutrality by 2070. If we want to achieve the climate targets, obviously we have to move towards cleaner fuel. But here recently government proposed this KF3 norms for automobile industry. So if we are focusing on this KF3 norms now, means we have to use this imported crude oil. That is the idea. So if you want to impose this, KF3 norms in our country, obviously what are the engines we are using now? They will not go for electrified engines or fuel flex engines. They will depend on crude oil. That's nothing but diesel or petrol. Now again the debate is going on whether we have to impose this KF3 norms or whether we have to focus on cleaner mobility. So this is the debates which are going on in our country. Okay, now let us see in detail what are these KF3 norms. Our Ministry of Power on July 16th, they came up with a draft notification of third iteration of KF3 after months of industry lobbying. So now here some manufacturers of automobiles, they are pushed for stronger norms, and this proposal attempts a compromise, but the question remains whether it prioritizes compliance over transformation. So here this article is saying that recently our ministry, government of India, released draft notification, that is nothing but KF3 norms, and it is asking this manufacturers of automobiles to have a stricter norms, and they want to now compromise on transformation. Rather than that, they are focusing on compliance now. So that is the thing which mainly said here. So actually we are focusing on KF3 norms. They are targeting this efficiency of fuel for manufacturers passenger vehicle fleets rather than individual models. So actually recently we discussed whenever we are using this ethanol blended petrol, what about the mileage, increased or decreased? 3 to 5% of decreasing of mileage. Because of this decreasing of mileage, will people come forward to have this ethanol blended petrol? For sure, no. That is the reason why now our KF3 norms had been implemented, and now they gave the strict guidelines for this automobile manufacturers to increase the mileage of vehicles. Okay, that means if you are using this ethanol blended petrol also means we have to import more and more petrol. Rather than that, we have to go for electrification of our vehicles or hydrogen powered vehicles. This article is talking about that idea. If we are implementing the KF3 norms, only now what happened? We are going to use again imported crude oil in our vehicles. If you are using this imported crude oil, obviously there will be increased carbon dioxide emissions into atmosphere. That is about this article. That's it, nothing more than this. So here you have to make a note of what are these KF3 norms, what they are talking about, what are the advantages of these norms, and what are the challenges, and how it will be having impact on our climate targets. That's it. It is your work, and today I'll be giving you mains question on this. Try to write this. Use your knowledge and try to keep your ideas on the paper. Okay, let us see the prelims questions now. Consider the following statements regarding Saint Ravidas. He is associated with Nirguna Bhakti tradition. Next one is he was traditionally regarded as a disciple of Ramananda. Third one, his compositions are included in Guru Granth Sahib. He advocated rigid caste hierarchy as a means of maintaining social order. First one is for sure right. You have to remember the names of saints who followed Saguna Bhakti and Nirguna Bhakti. On this, UPSC asked prelims question. Next one is he was traditionally regarded disciple of Ramananda, yes, and Guru Granth Sahib, yes. What about this fourth point? Will you support it or are you against it? He advocated rigid caste hierarchy. He belongs to marginalized. That means he is against caste-based hierarchy. On this, UPSC gave number of questions by using this against. He supported, like that. So if you do PYQs of history, you will come across this kind of statements many. Even in early Vedic and later Vedic period also, you will come across this kind of statements. Okay, what is the answer now? 1, 2, 3. Yes. See this next question. Consider the following statements regarding public examinations prevention of unfair means amendment bill 2026. Okay, first one, it seeks to amend Public Examinations Prevention of Unfair Means Act 2024. It proposes special fast-track courts for speedy disposal of examination-related offences. It provides for special task force to investigate paper leak cases. It abolishes the Public Examinations Prevention of Unfair Means Act. Here we have two statements talking about the same act. One is saying amendment, one is saying abolish. If you are getting that kind of statements, only one will be right. That means option which is having 1 and 4 will be wrong. Yes. So what will be the answer now? B. 1, 2, 3. It is there. Task force will be there. So only this will be wrong. Okay. Try to solve in that way, guys. That's all. By this I'm concluding. Thank you so much for watching this class. If you like this class, please do hit the like button and please do share this class to your friends. And do subscribe to Rathod Science Academy and try to attend this free orientation session on anthropology on 30th July. And the timings is 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. You can attend both on online and offline. It is free of cost, guys. And I wish you all the best.